Welcome to day number 3 of the school of prayer. Day number 3. The last couple days we've been talking about kind of entering into this school of prayer. Um, to use this time that we have to especially deepen our own prayer lives. So the first day I talked in general just about prayer, what is prayer, and then yesterday I talked about um, the different formulas or forms of prayer. We talked about praise, we talked about petition, we talked about thanksgiving to God, and we talked about intercession. If you missed that, you can go to yesterday's video and listen to that. But today I want to talk about different, what the Catechism calls expressions of prayer. Expressions of prayer. You could also kind of think about these as levels of prayer in some ways, if you will, too. But not necessarily in the sense that one is better than the other, but more so that one kind of leads to the other. So the three expressions of prayer that the Catechism talks about, I listed behind me: vocal prayer, meditation, and contemplation. So vocal prayer. So I want to talk about each of these. Vocal prayer is, well, as it sounds, it's spoken prayer, whether in our mind or out loud. It's the most basic level of prayer, this sense that what prayer is ultimately is conversation with God. And the way we naturally converse is through our words that we form through vocal prayers. And so that's kind of the most basic level of prayer. And this is a great form of prayer. And it's to that we express using words. And we need that as human beings. We need words. And sometimes when we don't have our own words to come up with, sometimes we need pre-written prayers that we can use. That's why the disciples were like, Jesus, we don't even know where to begin with prayer. So teach us how to pray. So Jesus gave him a vocal prayer. He said, when you pray, say, he gave him the words of the Our Father. That is very much a part of all of our prayer life. Now, vocal prayer is meant to be more than just simply a mindless repetition, like, oh, there's some words and I will say them. No, it's supposed to engage us in conversation. But pre-written prayers, like the Our Father, and many other prayers that we have, the prayers of the saints, the Hail Mary, there's a lot of beautiful prayers of the saints, the prayers of our liturgy, that we'll be talking about liturgical prayer and how that all works later. That'll be upcoming, something to look forward to, and how it incorporates everything we've been talking about. So vocal prayers, simply just talking to God. And like I said, using sometimes the texts of pre-written prayers, the saints, scripture, as a way to kind of have that conversation with God. But then, in that conversation, in vocal prayer, it's meant to kind of help us go to a deeper level of relationship with God. Just like in our conversations with people, when we talk to people, we might start with, the basic, greetings, how we doing, how's the weather, how you surviving the coronavirus, the basic conversation starters that we have now. But like all conversation, when we're cultivating a friendship, a conversation is meant to go deeper. And that's what kind of these levels of prayer are: vocal prayer, and then to the next level, what we might call meditation. So meditation, the second expression of prayer, is kind of the more intentional meditating, taking something, a passage of scripture, religious art, an image, and sort of doing the intentional, sustained chewing, if you will, on it. Taking it and really kind of letting it bounce around in your head, and really focusing on this thing to allow it to really speak to us on a deeper level. So like I said, the main things we use for meditation, sacred scriptures is a huge part of that. And there's a method of meditation called Lectio Divina, which I'm not going to talk about now, but I'll be talking about later when we talk about methods of prayer, which I'll be talking about more. But it's kind of taking whether scriptures, or it could also be, like I said, one of these pre-written prayers, and really just sitting with it, kind of repeating it slowly over and over and letting it wash over you. Kind of let the depths of it start to impact you on a deeper level. Religious imagery or art, icons was an early form, iconography, an early form of Christian art. It was really used for prayer and for meditation to express the spiritual depths of this particular saint or biblical scene or so forth. Or just good religious art, as I said. The words from the liturgies, our prayers from our liturgies, liturgical prayers, can be used as a source of meditation. But even, of course, creation, the beautiful outdoors. When we have that moment when we sit, when we watch this beautiful sunset, we just silently kind of take it in and let the mystery and beauty of it wash over us. And it brings it to engaging our, not just meditating on this thing, but how this engages into our life. Letting kind of the craziness of our life settle so the depths of this can really speak to us and speak into our hearts of what we are feeling and experiencing. Sometimes meditation can involve really this engagement of the imagination. Sometimes when people meditate with, say, the scriptures, maybe taking a passage of scripture, a story of Christ, some people find it helpful to just, say a story of Christ, healing of the blind person. That's what we had last Sunday was our gospel passage. But to take the story and not just take it at face value, but really imagine the whole scene. Imagine, was it a cloudy day? Was it a sunny day? What's the ground look like? Is it grassy? Is it rocky? Is it sandy? And then even imagining, what's the temperature out? Is it cold? Is it warm? What are the colors that people are wearing? Just engaging the whole imagination to really be pulled into the scene as a form of meditation. And it can really help people to go deeper and allow this passage of scripture to speak more deeply into us. Because what do we see? What do we smell? What do we feel? What are we experiencing? And as we're in the scene, are we just a person watching the scene? Are we one of the characters in the scene? That can be a way of meditation with scripture. So there's many different methods and forms and guides of meditation, as I said, and many sources of meditation, as I will too, that help us draw us deeper in the school of prayer. And then the third expression of prayer is what we call contemplation, or some of the saints will call this mental prayer. And it's really through the work of vocal prayer and meditation that help lead us to the third and deepest level of prayer, what we call contemplation. Now, contemplation is a little harder to explain because it's getting at that very deep level with God, where we just can sit with God and be and allow His mystery to wash over us, and really where we get to that place of deep stillness and allow Him to speak to us. And there's so much that could be said on contemplation alone. One way St. Teresa d'Avila puts it is that contemplative prayer, in my opinion, is nothing else than that close sharing between friends. It means taking time frequently to be alone with Him who we know loves us. Probably the best analogy of contemplation is taking, the example of a married couple who have been together for so many years, who love each other deeply, an elderly couple. They're just completely content to be in each other's presence and let sort of the love of each other just wash over each other. They don't have to say a word or have a sustained conversation. But it's this deeper level of communication where somehow, you sometimes see couples and they seem to almost read each other's minds or know what the other person wants simply from a nod of their head or a flick of their eyes. Contemplation is kind of on that level of prayer with God. And it's also the time where we really listen to God on a deeper level, a time of intense prayer where we're just entirely focused on Him and the rest of the world finally kind of fades away. Now, some people are like, well, Father Kevin, I could never do that. But you'd be surprised because we're all called to this deep level of prayer. What's important is making the time for prayer. Because when you start making intentional time for prayer day in and day out, the vocal prayer and the meditation become easier, and this entering into the state of contemplation becomes more and more natural. That we become more comfortable, that even when the world is going crazy around us, even in their busyness of life, the day-to-day grind at work or at school, we can kind of enter into that place of contemplation of God. And I'll end with this, a story. There's a story of a man, who would, the priest would see this man, this kind of gruff, grubby farmer, and he'd just see him stop in to church every day. Around the same time, for about 10 minutes, he'd just go and he'd stand in the back of church for a while, just kind of stare, and then he'd walk away. He'd do this day after day, and the guy was starting to get a little suspicious. The priest was like, hey, what is he up to? What's he doing? Is he going to cause trouble? Is he looking to rob the sacristy or something? So I finally asked him, he said, what do you do every day when you come in and you just stare for 10 minutes? The man simply said, I come, and I look at Jesus, and he looks at me. I think that's also a pretty good image of contemplation. So let us continue to cultivate the school of prayer, and remember, the best way to learn how to pray is to do it, to practice. It's not always easy, but we'll talk more about that, the struggle of prayer, in later episodes as well. Peace be with you. God bless you. Continue to go deep in prayer as we continue to move through this strange time. And it's a time when we need prayer more than ever during this time. So know that I'm praying for you. And a reminder that tomorrow there will be a special time of prayer that the Pope will be offering at noon. You can access that via live stream at the Vatican News website. Peace be with you. God bless you. And we'll see you tomorrow.